Hey everybody, this is David, the Georgia photographer, and well, it's New Year's, no it ain't, it's Christmas Eve. Yeah, that's what day it is. We've done exchanged our gifts, and I got a really cool painting Sierra made for me that's of our tomcat, Frady. Yeah, his name is Frady Cat because he's skittish, but I got some interesting stuff that I like. I got some pants. I always like my new pants, but didn't get no photography gear, bummer, but hey, whatever. So I've got a little bit of free time here toward the end of the day, so I'm gonna go down here to my creek and I'm gonna see about getting a photo of some moving water in my own creek bed, and I'm gonna go over like the settings I set up and things like that. With that, let's go down into the woods down to the creek and let's see what we got. Come on. All right, when I'm scouting for a spot along a creek like this for a motion shot, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get water motion blur. So I've got some ND filters and I've got a circular polarizer with me. I'm looking for stuff that's right up there where it's cascading over those rocks. That's a really good scene. I'll probably cross the creek and move up the creek bank to where I can get up there. It's maybe on that rock right there. Try to get my shot framed up that way. Okay. What I just did was take a test shot just to see what the composition is going to look like. It looks pretty good. It's not great, but it's not bad. What I would like to have is I'd like to add a foreground element, and I'm thinking about moving my camera because there's a huge rock right here. And I'd like to add maybe this rock to the foreground to give me like a third depth element. If I could get out in the water without getting wet, I'd use this rock. But since I don't have it available, I really don't want to get wet. I can get this rock in the frame and work across the creek from this angle. And I'm also trying to frame out that piece of trash that's in the water. Since it's a landscape shot, I typically want more in focus instead of less. So I'm gonna push my f-stop up to about f8 or f11. And then I've got two 5-stop ND filters and a circular polarizer, which is like a stop and a half, I think, maxed out. So I'm gonna use the circular polarizer first and see about the water reflection, get rid of that sheen. And then I'm gonna add a 5-stop. With the light being nearly dusk like it is, that'll probably be enough. I run base ISO, it's ISO 64. I've got the camera in autofocus and I focused on a rock right at the bottom of the little cascade. And then I'll turn off my focus drive. Now the focus will stay where it's at. I've got the composition set with a large rock in the corner for foreground, this kind of element. But that's all there really is to it. I'm shooting in RAW, so you know all the camera settings are kind of a moot point. I use auto white balance and let it deal with that. I'll color correct white balance in Lightroom. So I don't bother with white balance unless it's real drastic. If it's obvious that there's the orange cast in the room, then I'll go in and I'll take a white balance adjustment from that. But if it's just like out right now, dusk, I'll let the camera do the white balance work for me. But I've got the 60mm micro nickel on here, D series. This is a screw drive focus lens. It won't work on a Z series camera body because they didn't put any provision for these lenses in those new cameras. So that's one of the things I like about the D810 and the 850. If you have one of those, is it'll focus this. Of course, any of the full frame cameras have a screw drive focus motor in them. And the 7000 series crop sensor Nikons have a screw drive focus motor in them as well. They'll all focus this lens just fine. It will work in manual focus, even if you didn't do that. For landscape work, something like this is a great lens. So let's get this party started and let's see what we can come up with. Filters. All right, there's my circular polarizer and my two NDs. So let's get the circular polarizer on this guy first. And what I've also got is adapter rings. These let me put my 77mm filters on this, was it 62mm front thread? Yeah. So I'll just run those. That way I buy one set of filters and run them on almost all of my lenses. We're already getting there. I ain't even added the 5-stop ND yet. Just with what's already built in going on with the camera, I'm down to nearly as slow as I want to be. Alright, let's add some ND to this. Alright, here we go. I'm just letting the camera do the thinking. It's coming up with a 5-second exposure at f8. And I'm just doing a test shot before I take my actual picture. Because when I take the picture, I'll set it in timer mode and let it time out. Now it's saying that it's a 20-second exposure instead of a 5. Isn't that interesting? That's how quick the sun's going down. And I run high ISO noise reduction. But until you get over a certain amount of time, it doesn't really help anything. Oh, this actually looks pretty good. Wow. Okay, let's add 2/3 of the stop exposure compensation. A lot of times people want to run like manual mode on stuff like this. And until you get over 30 seconds on your exposure time, the D810 will do the math really well for you. I'll run aperture priority, set my aperture, and then I'll set my focus, turn off my focus drive, and then I'll just set it to timer mode and fire them off the timer to get rid of my inducing camera shake. Of course, you know, you got shutter movement, but it's not enough to really hurt nothing. When you're doing a 15-second exposure, the mirror moving up and down doesn't put enough shake into the camera to really amount to anything. But yeah, let's see what we got here. I like the large rock in the foreground. It's giving me some nice compositional balance to the frame. You got all of this water motion out here beside it. All right, let's pack it up. Let's move on down. Let's see what else we can find. The everyday messenger still serving me. Did I ever mention I really like this camera bag? My normal setup procedure would be to shoot a test shot at wide open aperture. That'll give me a good high shutter speed and let me see what the composition is basically going to look like. Then I'll put the lens in the f-stop that I'm actually going to get the frame at. Once I do that, then I'll add the circular polarizer, and typically I'll take another shot, make sure I like it with the glimmer on the water gone the way I want. I normally don't remove it all, but sometimes I do. If I'm trying to see the rocks underneath, then I'll try to get rid of all of it. But sometimes you want that little bit of shimmer just to give it that look, you know. Normally I'm at base ISO, and like I said, I'm at auto white balance, and I'm letting the camera really kind of drive other than aperture. I'll set it in aperture priority for most of that. I don't see the real need in running manual, because then you do a whole bunch of trial and error shots at long exposure trying to get the exposure right, to where like I said, if you stay under 30 seconds, and to get those water blur shots, you can stay under 30 seconds easily enough and get a really good water motion blur shot. So I'll let the camera choose the, you know, I'll run the aperture, and then I'll kind of control it with the ND filter and with the f-stop, and then I'll just move it until I see the time is 15-20 seconds, something like that. Like I ran this one with a little bit of exposure compensation. I think I had 2/3 of a stop of exposure compensation dialed in to get me some extra time, because it was doing the math and coming out with about a 10-second exposure. On my test shot, it did look a little dark, so just to make sure I had plenty of operating light, I just added a little bit of exposure comp. Once I get done there, then I take it to Lightroom, and that's where I'll start doing I'll do color correction, you know, and all the light and shadow stuff. I shoot in RAW, so it's a pretty flat image out of camera, but it gives me lots of dynamic range to work with. That's kind of the goal with capturing the image out here. Then I can take it to the computer and I can piddle with it in there, because I like to experiment with different things in the computer, and that'll give me plenty of image content to work with. Whew, there's the sun. Now I'm backlit. Sierra's parking the Jeep. She just went to the store and got her medicine. Whew. She come down with a case of the strep throat, so they got her all fixed up now, but she had a pretty good fever yesterday and the day before. I'm getting text messages like crazy. I bet it's Teresa. Let's go see. Okay, so we've got the photos. It's not the same day. I've failed to film the outro on the same day, so it's a different day. It's raining like crazy now outside. I'm finishing up the video and realized there's no outro. But I got the photo I wanted. It looked good. I posted one on my Instagram and formatted for Instagram. So if you like my ideas and tips and things, give me a thumbs up. I appreciate that. And if you like the channel, I'd really appreciate if you'd reach down there and click on that subscribe button and give me a subscribe out of the deal, because subscribers are cool. Remember that. Only the cool people subscribe to my channel. Anyway, this is David, the Georgia photographer, and I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.